Madam Chair, this is Daniel Walker. We do have a quorum present.
Good evening. This is January 5th, 2022. Happy New Year. Welcome to our first committee meeting of the year. This is the Intergovernmental Committee meeting. My name is Linda Gray. I'm the First District Council member. I'd like to call the agenda for the committee meeting. Shanae Darby, 2nd District.
Present.
Michelle Harley.
Present.
Yolanda McCoy.
Here.
Xanthia Oliver.
Councilwoman Xanthia Oliver, present.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. And President Congo. Are there any other council members present? Would you like to acknowledge? I thought I saw some other council members. Okay. There's only one thing on the agenda this evening. We have a quorum. It's an ordinance to establish the incumbents. An ordinance established that incumbents' addresses are not used for mapping purposes for redistricting. Do we have anyone here to speak to this ordinance?
Yes, I will. Good evening, everyone. So this ordinance, I am bringing it up on my phone, but throughout this last few months, we've been working on the redistricting process. I have been speaking to national, local partners on best practices for redistricting. And one of the things that we talked about is that what has happened in the past, and then even this redistricting process that we're in now, to avoid things that will happen in the future. We had maps in this redistricting process where we labeled council members' addresses on there. And that is not best practices to use incumbents' addresses on maps that are being drawn or being used to redistrict our city. The purpose of redistricting is not to keep incumbents in their respective neighborhoods or respective districts. The purpose of redistricting is to keep communities of interest together. So just to make it fair, just and to follow what the experts say, I'm really interested in legislation that will revamp the redistricting process. So in the next 10 years, we don't have some of the issues that arose this time and some of the issues that happened in the past. So I'm going to open it up to my colleagues, or I don't know what's next.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Do we have any questions from committee members or any comments?
I'd like to, I'm trying to put my hand up. Can you see my hand?
No, but I know Councilwoman Oliver, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't see the purpose, me personally, this is my opinion. I don't see the purpose of this piece of legislation. I don't think I know we didn't have any, I was on the committee, the redistricting committee, and I didn't see a problem with it. I didn't see the addresses. I just saw a name to say, you know, councilmanic district, might say Councilman Oliver, just to show the area I cover, but I didn't notice where it was just, you know, a direct address. And I also spoke to some national experts on this, and I spoke to two of them, and both of them said the same thing. Why would we be making a decision for, why would we be making a decision for something that's going to occur 10 years from now that we have nothing to do with? What would be the positive impact on us making a decision for two seated council members, 2.5 seated council members And most of us won't even be on council, during that time, just like who are we to judge, to tell them how to do the redistricting? I mean, by law, it's up to us every 10 years by law to do redistricting. By law, it's up to us to increase the salary for the next council members. That's by law, but this is not by law that we are tampering or interfering with something that's going to occur 10 years from now. And that was the experts I spoke to. So that's all I have to say. So with that, I won't be voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
My hand is raised, Council Member Gray.
Thank you, Councilmember Harley. No, I can't even see these hands. Okay, I thank you for speaking up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you. So one, when this exercise was being done during this particular census committee, redistricting committee, as Councilmember Oliver said, I see names just sporadically on the different maps, but I don't even know. I didn't see any addresses. I didn't see no addresses that stood out that said council member, this person, that person, or the other. The addresses was all throughout the mapping, so it was not anything that stood out that was distinctive for council members. I'll be perfectly honest. I don't know what your address, I don't know what nobody's address is based on any of the maps that we've seen. So I really don't know where that is coming from. And as far as my research and working on this redistricting, not once was it even considered where any council member lived. So everybody has their own conspiracy theories about how people do this and how people do that. But I'm not one that buy into conspiracy theories, because I was elected to represent the people, to be honest, to do my due diligence as an elected official. And that's exactly what I did as it relates to working with this redistricting. It had nothing to do with trying to figure out what council member lived where. I'm only speaking for myself. I can't speak for the full council. So that's a completely conspiracy theory in terms of thinking about other council members as the work was being done that I was doing. I don't know about anyone else. And so I don't see the validity of it. And most importantly, I believe that the next redistricting committee should decide how they would like to govern their committee. And if this was something that a council member was passionate about, it should have been brought up at the beginning of this meeting or at any particular time. It could have been brought up during this particular session for this particular redistricting committee, if that was a concern. So I'm not in favor of putting together any kind of rules for another committee. I think the redistricting committee for the next 10 years, just like we had the opportunity to put together our rules, we had an opportunity to decide how we were going to do this. I think we should honor the other redistricting committee that will be selected in 10 years and let them decide at that particular time. Thank you, Madam Council President.
Thank you.
Council Chair.
That's okay. President, we got to get back into practice. We've been on vacation. Councilman Congo?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to be marked present first and recognized.
Okay, thank you. No comment though?
Yes. Also, this is a very interesting piece of legislation. I know of at least 2 instances where politicians' addresses have definitely been considered when redistricting has been at the table. And I can even remember during our process when certain maps were proposed, And one of the maps didn't include a certain council member. That council member took offense because that map, it redistricted, it didn't include them in their district. So I'm not sure if anybody else can remember it, but that just speaks to the intent of this proposed legislation, because we had it happen on our watch. And I know it happened on the state level at least twice, purposely. So I think this is a very proactive piece of legislation that just puts redistricting at the forefront, and it doesn't become political. And I think that it allows the committee to do what's best as far as drawing the maps without becoming political. It's a very political process. We may not want to speak on it, but it's absolutely political. It always has been political, and we've even noticed it again on our watch during this process. So I am going to support it, but I think it just makes the process. It takes the politics out of the process. But it aims to do that at least. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any non-committee council members that have a comment? Oh, yeah, I do see hands up. Brigida, Councilwoman Fields.
Thank you for saying my name right. I really appreciate that.
I really do try to remember.
First of all, I'd like to say good evening to everyone. And I'm just going to jump right on into this. The person that President Congo is talking about is Brigida Fields, Councilwoman for the 5th District. And no, it wasn't taken personally. I just explained myself very clearly that I didn't see the purpose of moving the council person out that district if that's where they're known at. So if anyone has taken offense to that, that's on them. When I said I'm talking about my community. I'm talking about my constituents. I'm talking about the people that know me. So that's what I said. So if it was misconstrued as if, oh, you can't move, oh, you can't do this and that, I wasn't saying it as in that tense. I said it in the tense of the community knowing who their representative is. So so I just had to check that first. Secondly, why are we working on something that's going to be 10 years down the line? Who knows who's going to be in those positions? That's number one. Number two, I'm not going to say that this process this time wasn't a bad one, but it wasn't bad nor it was good. I'm just going to say we got done what we needed to get done so that we can be an effective council and we can continue to represent the people within our district. What I think that should have happened is done like everyone else did from the state and so on and so forth, gotten a consultant to do, someone that knows what they're doing, someone that's done it before, and we could, just go from there. So I'm not, my whole thing is I said what I said and I meant that, but it wasn't in the context that the other members or my other colleagues are taking it. So yeah, I don't have no problem with telling you I said it. Yeah, I said it. And you run the tape and look at it again. And I'm just going to say, that's it. I don't support it. And that's it. And I'm done.
Thank you. Councilwoman Oliver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also would like to add, if hypothetically something like this did occur, the only thing the person has to do is call Department of Elections and say, could you give me a map with the names on it? And they'll print it out, because I did check that today. So another reason that it makes no sense, because I can see a map with nothing on it. Go down to Department of Labor and ask them to give me a copy of it. And the lady said they would give you a copy of it. So it's like, what would be the purpose of it? Another thing, we were elected to run the government, the city of Wilmington, and this has nothing to do with running government 10 years from now. I just don't see the purpose of it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Harley.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, when you think about what and how we work as a committee, part of the issue to me could have been more, it could have been more collaborative. I mean, if people felt as though that there was some issue with having the names on it, that's my issue, that nobody called, picked up the phone to say, hey, can we consider doing, this work that we're doing without this or without that? No one ever picked up the phone to call, to communicate anything. And it could have been merely a phone call, because I'll be perfectly honest with you, it didn't matter to me one way or the other if the names were on the map or if they were not on the map. Had somebody picked up the phone and make a phone call, we may not even may not have to be going through, this right here, if somebody picked up the phone. And that's the issue that I have, is that people have these strong opinions about things. We are a team that should be working together and that should be communicating, and not always having to put legislation on the floor because somebody just decides not to pick up the phone to talk to their council members to say, I think it would be better if we don't do it this way, or I think will be better if we did it this way. I personally would appreciate a phone call if someone feels strongly about something, instead of always putting legislation on the table and then we're going back and forth like this, whereas we've been working together since August as a redistricting committee. And to be talking about this right now, and I think it's shameful when somebody could have easily called and said, hey, let's do it differently. There's nothing wrong with picking up the phone to communicate with your council member about your feelings about something respectfully. Okay, everything doesn't have to be a fight. Everything doesn't have to be an argument. Everything doesn't have to be divisive. We can work together. Just think about picking up the phone sometime, saying, hey, I have something to share. And so again, as Council Member Oliver just said, hey, if the names are removed, they can be removed. But if you need a name on it to figure out how you're trying to be contiguous or whatever the reason may be, you can request that from the Department of Elections. So again, I just, want to say that there are people that were new, and sometimes if people do not fully understand the process, maybe they're speaking from that perspective. But as it relates to communicating with me as a council member, not one person communicated to me about anything regarding, oh, this is my area or that's my area, don't do this, don't do that. So I don't know again where all of it's coming from. And just because one council person spoke up, that does not mean that one person represents this whole redistricting committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to make a comment. I really think that this ordinance is not accusatory. And I think the committee members are taking it a little personal. I think really this is a preventative thing for the future, since as everyone has pointed out, it's not going to affect our redistricting. We're pretty much finished with it. So I really don't think this is accusatory, and I really don't think there was any reason in this occasion for someone to pick up the phone and talk to the committee. I mean, I expressed my opinion about not taking people from my district, but that wasn't because of my address or anything like that. And I would like the sponsor, she will be the last one to speak, to address what happens when you get two council members in the same district after redistricting. I know that has happened, and I'd like to know how the Department of Elections and the state takes care of that. And I must agree with President Congo that even in the first district a couple of years ago on the state level, they did redistrict, and they did consider one representative's address and cut him out. I mean, that's historical. But like I said, I really don't think this ordinance is speaking to our process or being punitive or critical. So I don't think it's a matter of people not contacting each other this time. I think it is projected for the future. So that's what I have to say on this. So are there any, is there anyone from the public that wants to speak? No, I still have more committee members. I'm sorry. Councilwoman McCoy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, I just wanted to give just my opinion on it as well. I did get a chance to read over the ordinance, and I do understand where it is coming from. But as is actually been spoken, the fact, okay, so listen, Council President stated that this should not be made political, but redistricting, the whole point of it is political.
Yes,
What has actually been stated is that we are completed. We were almost finished our redistricting. To start putting in processes for the next committee, I feel like, we may be doing a disservice to them, trying to figure out how they're going to get things done. So I understand where it comes from. And if we had to do this initially coming in, then we probably would have done that. But now that we've come to a close, I don't think I'll be supporting this ordinance either.
President Congo?
Okay, yes, thank you, Madam Chair. You pretty much summed up what I was going to say. I don't really see I don't see this legislation being punitive or accusatory at all. So I'm really kind of taken back by the way that some council members are reacting to it. And it's unfortunate because I don't think that this was the heart of the legislation. I think that it was just I think that Councilwoman Darby is just trying to make it less political. We all know that it's always going to be a political process. I just think that she was trying to make it less political. And I don't know, it just seems like a lot of the comments were just taken very personally. And hopefully they can understand that it's not personal. I think that if it were personal, it would have been, I think that she would have tried to do it this time. But she's taken all of us out of it because who knows where we're going to be in 10 years. And she's just trying to make the process a little cleaner for whoever is on council in 10 more years. Yeah, but you summed it up really well, Councilwoman Gray. That it's just, I just don't think that it's accusatory at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Harlan?
Oh, I just definitely want to make it clear that I'm not taking it personal and I don't think it's accusatory. I'm just going by what the sponsor said. When the sponsor, when Madam Chair, you asked for her the sponsor to speak to it, I'm going by the language that was used. That's what I'm going by. And so I just wanted to clear that up. And again, I do feel as though that there should be more communication as it relates to these types of things. I never received one call, not one call about anything for as this redistricting from the sponsor of this legislation. And I find that it to be very, very interesting with all the different concerns and things of that nature. And again, I will say that there are some things that picking up the phone could address, to talk about it in a way where you can get understanding. And when there's understanding, then you can work through things. And I won't take that back, that I hope in the future that there is more opportunities where we can talk about the legislation and we can talk about these kinds of things before everything always hits the floor. Because for 6 months, from August to now, this could came up. This could have been something that could have been addressed. And again, I don't feel as though that I have the right to set in motion any guidelines for the next redistricting committee. I wouldn't want them to do it for us, and I will not be doing that for the next redistricting committee. And I'm not taking it personal, and I don't think it's accusatory, but I do think there's a lot of conspiracy theory out there. And I'm not pointing no fingers at nobody, but I'm just paying attention to language that's being used. Thank you.
Okay, I don't understand why, I'm really not understanding why the sponsor should have called any of us. This doesn't apply to anything that we're doing. It doesn't apply to our redistricting at all. So I don't understand the needed communication by the sponsor. I understand not wanting to affect or set standards or rules for 10 years from now, but her having or needing to communicate this legislation to any of us on the committee or on the redistricting committee, this committee or the redistricting, I don't see the necessity for that. I
You
mean,
don't feel as though a conversation could have accomplished the same thing during this redistricting session and exercise?
no, you've already said, I don't disagree that it didn't affect our redistricting. We didn't have a problem with putting our addresses on the map. It's not addressing us at all. We're almost finished. Everyone agrees. No one's accusing us. I didn't get that idea of having council people's addresses, council persons' addresses on our map. So I don't understand why there was a need to communicate this ordinance or legislation with us prior to this meeting. I'm just not understanding, that's all.
Yeah, well, that's, we don't always understand everything. I get that.
Right, okay. So are there any other, okay, yeah, I see other hands. Brigida, Councilwoman Fields, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to say, if my passion and my love for my community came off personal, then so be it. But it was never personal. It was never vindictive, and I was never being mean to anyone. My passion for my community, it is personal, because if you don't have any feelings in this game of politics and taking care of your community and being passionate about something, then you don't need to be in here at all. So if you say we took it personal, I didn't take it personal like that. I'm taking it personal as far as the passion for my community. So if that's how they feel, that's how they feel. But it was never anything. I didn't take it personally like it was a dart thrown at me. I took it personal because I'm passionate about my people and I'm passionate about my community. And yes, I do speak hard. And I just want to make sure that everybody hears me clearly. So if I do raise my voice, so be it. But it's not to harm anyone or to scare anyone or to take it personal. I'm just expressing how I feel at that particular time. Thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Darby, I see your hand, but you get the last word. So I'm trying to let everyone else speak first. Do we have anyone from the public? Can I ask WIT, is there anyone out there from the public?
We do have one person from the public, Madam Chair.
Can we put them on? What is their name?
We have Brandon Fletcher.
Okay, Mr. Letcher.
Hi, Councilwoman, Council Chair. This is Brandon Fletcher. I am a resident of the 5th Councilmanic District on the west side of Wilmington. I am calling in today to just ask the committee to support the ordinance that would prohibit consideration of incumbent council members' home addresses by the redistricting committee and the city council during the redistricting process. Councilwoman Fields, I don't think any member is questioning your passion for the community, but I think that this is an important piece of legislation moving forward to ensure that the process is fair and that incumbents' home addresses aren't being considered when it comes to a fair map-making process. Whether the council stays the same or it's different in 10 years, I think this is an important piece of legislation to ensure that it is done in a responsible way and that the drawing of the maps aren't being considered based on who lives where, so that certain members can keep a certain voting block that they would prefer in order to stay in political power, rather than draw the maps in a way that is of communities of interest and that ensures that the community has meaningful representation. With that being said, I think redistricting affects the legislative body, which in turn affects the decisions that are being made in our community. And so this is, like most of the council members have mentioned, Councilwoman Gray, Congo, and Darby, this isn't going to impact this year's redistricting, but in the next 10 years to ensure that it's done in a fair and democratic way. That's all I have. And I just once again ask the council members to please support this ordinance because it's a fair ordinance. And I think would be great for the next council in 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us and thank you for your comment. Are there any other public comments? Any other individuals?
Madam Chair, that is all public comment.
Okay, Councilwoman Darby, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry, Linda, you didn't see my hand?
No, I thought we had finished with council members. Okay.
I'm sorry, I just was
Okay,
trying to say something in closing. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Councilwoman. Oliver.
No, I just wanted to say in closing that I agree with council members. See, I was on the committee and on the redistricting committee. And for it to be, as she stated, it was a lot of people's first time and we didn't have a consultant. But with that being said, I think we got through the process. I thought we all did a very good job. I just agree with the statement she made about maybe picking up the phone call, picking up the telephone. So I wanted to clear that up when you said you didn't understand that. When you're talking about an ordinance, this is not a resolution. I mean, everybody works their paperwork differently. But when you're talking about an ordinance, I pick up the phone and try to make contact with some members regarding ordinance. It's a resolution is different. And also with this, I have to reiterate, the council members in 10 years can come back and overturn this if they want to. And I know if I was them, I would, because I would want to, it seemed like we're beating a dead horse. This should have been done at the beginning of our redistricting. Now the redistricting is over and now we're coming back saying we want to put in something for redistricting that's going to take place in another 10 years. It just makes no sense to me.
I think we lost you, Councilwoman Oliver. So we will go to Councilwoman Darby.
Yes, before I was interrupted and cut off when I was talking. There's another, someone else who had their hand up from the public. I don't know if you missed them.
I can't see them. I have to ask them back again.
Okay.
We, Madam Chair, this is Dan Walker. We do have another member of the public. Not sure if he's prepared to speak at the moment.
Could you check and see if he's prepared?
It's Mr. Owens. Mr. Owens, if you would like to offer public comment, please raise your hand. I do not see his hand up, Madam Chair.
Oh, okay. Well, he just texted me and said that he was trying to speak, but.
Are you talking about Mr. Kobe Owens?
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
Can
I
we
don't see
continue?
him. Okay, well, we have to move on.
Okay.
Councilwoman Darby.
Yes, so I want to address a few things that's regarding the legislation. I'm not going to go into all the other emotional feeling things that were happening tonight. But in regards to this legislation, it's in best national practice. There is not one organization that will go against that. Incumbents' addresses should not be marked or located on maps. Someone was saying that our full address aren't on there. That is true. And it's not a theory. So I reached out from the beginning of the redistricting process. I reached out to our staff and I said, why are people's addresses marked? And they said, council people requested this. It was requested by council people to put people's addresses on maps. And that was what was communicated to me by staff. And my first thing from day one was, that's not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to put incumbents' addresses on maps. That is not national best practice. And that is conversations that I had with the ACLU and NAACP. There's so many different organizations. So it's a lie if anyone tells you there's any organization that's saying having incumbents' addresses on maps is best practices, because we know that in the future, in the past, and even we don't even know what to say for today, but that addresses were important to incumbents in drawing maps. I am interested, someone said that they're not interested in reform that is long-term. I am interested in long-term reform. I'm not here for photos, for photo ops, to go to events, to give out turkeys every year. That is not my thing. What I am here for as a council person is my community. The community voted me in. The community funded my campaign. The community put me into this seat, and I'm from the community. And what I'm looking for is, and anything I do, is long-term reform. What happens when I leave here? When I am not in this seat, what will this look like when I'm not here? I'm not worried about Shanae for 4 years, and then if I do another 4 years, I'm not just worried about 8 years, 8 years. I'm worried about what happens in my city 20 years from now, 30. My daughter will be an adult in 10 years. Mind blowing. So I want her to, if she decides to stay in Wilmington, to live in a city that has legislation that is being put in place that is long-term and have an impact on communities that is fair, right? So we talk about, we can't worry about 10 years from now. Yes, that is the purpose of being a council person. That is the point of being a politician. How do we make long-term impact on people? How do we make long-term impact on our community? That's basic. It's like mind-blowing that people are saying that. And then what's really another thing is, I want to also confirm with staff, so you don't think it's a conspiracy theory, that I reached out and I want staff to come on, either Chief of Staff Walker or Marshall or someone, that I did ask about this from the beginning of the process, and what I was told about why addresses were on the maps. And then I asked, why are they on there? And they said, council can do what they want. They requested it. So I want to confirm that with our staff so that this is on record.
Councilmember Darby, this is Chief of Staff Walker. Thanks for your question. It was asked in the initial redistricting committee meeting by DOE if it would be helpful to list council member locations on the map, and multiple committee members did respond in the affirmative.
Okay, thank you. So council people wanted their addresses on the maps when DOE asked and request. So thank you for confirming that. That is not a conspiracy theory. So then what happened was addresses were then sent to DOE. The addresses of all the council people were then labeled with markers. They didn't just randomly put markers anywhere. They used your address. They used your address and put it on a map. And then when it's on the map, you know what they did? Now you're drawing maps using your address on the map. That's like basic, right? It's really basic that your real address was used. Even though they didn't write it out, your real address was used and it was put on the map. So it's not a fake address. The markers weren't randomly put somewhere. They used your address because council wanted them on there. And when council wanted them on there, that's when so it's not a conspiracy theory, just want to confirm that. It's all facts. And then the next thing on my list is that this piece of legislation probably won't go through and it won't be voted because council people here tonight, as you just heard, are not interested in long-term impact for our city and making sure that things are just and fair. I want you guys to hear this about your council and what would happen tonight and the conversations we were having. They're only concerned about photo ops and turkeys. So we need to be really careful about who we vote into office, and national best practices throughout the country says do not put incumbents' addresses onto maps. Council said, yes, put our addresses on there. The redistricting committee, the people who sat in here and said they're on this committee were the ones who said yes, and addresses were put on the maps. So I want to, I'm not even gonna vote on my legislation. I'm going to hold it, but I want the public to be very clear, and I want this recording to see that this legislation is for the community. This legislation is to protect the community, and this legislation is what real politicians, what real elected officials are supposed to be doing, is making long-term impact on their community, making long-term impact on what's happening. My daughter is going to be an adult in 10 years, and I pray and hope that she doesn't have to deal with the same type of government that she's dealing with now. Thank y'all.
Okay, Councilwoman Darby, it only takes 3 to vote out of committee. Are you sure you want to hold this and you don't want me to take it to a vote? It's your decision.
If I got 3, so you know what? I think I got 3. Let's see if I got 3. So let's vote on it.
Okay, we are going to take a vote on this ordinance. The ordinance is establishing.
Madam Chair.
Who's that? Oh,
That's Councilwoman McCoy.
McCoy,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
like, I don't want to interrupt the vote. I wanted to say it right before you actually got finished. I'm like, I heard everything that was stated and I understand where it comes from. But as I would love to point out, one thing that has been mentioned more than once about politics. This has always been political. If we need to make any changes, we need to take the politicians out of it. To have an unbiased contractor take this and do what needs to be done, rather than putting it in the politicians' hands, what to me would have been the better piece of legislation, rather than allowing us to keep doing it.
I'm so sorry.
Wait,
I
stop.
thought I had the last word, and then there are people talking.
I understand, so we all need to stop. I have to go. I'm going to defer to council staff, Mr. Walker first.
Hi, Chairwoman Gray. This is Daniel Walker. Just to clarify, it takes 3 members of council for a quorum of a committee, but it does take a majority of the committee members present to vote out a piece of legislation. On tonight, the entire committee is present, which would be a committee of 6. And so a 3-3 vote would result in a failed piece of legislation, if that is the course of action.
Thank you for that clarification. Well, with that clarification, Councilwoman Darby, how do you want to proceed?
Yes. So what I want to say, since I didn't have the last word to talk, and y'all just allowing anything to happen tonight, I want to say that this legislation is the beginning, as I said in the beginning of my introduction. This is the beginning of looking at reforming redistricting process. We're looking at other cities. That research is happening now on how they do redistricting, because how redistricting happened this time was not okay. We need experts, not people who are sitting on council who think they're experts. We need experts, and also council who are not following national best practices, or organizations that had given us advice and recommendations on how to draw maps. It was not followed. So what I am saying is that this is the first step, and that we're going to continue to do research and keep adding on to it to reform our redistricting process, so that our community, which I care about 10 years from now, even though I hope I'm not sitting on council here, and that they have a fair and just system. So this is the beginning. This is the first step. We cannot do everything at one time. Things come in little baby steps sometimes as we do research, as we figure out what's best practices, as I talk to the ACLU, the NAACP, as I talk to all of these different illegal women voters. Can we come together? What does redistricting look like? And one of the first pieces of legislation that they supported is this one, and the incarceration one that I brought up. About how incarcerated people were counted. So that was a small piece of legislation that changed what redistricting is. This is another one that's going to change it a little bit. So reform sometimes does not happen at one time. Reform sometimes happens in bits and pieces until you get all the right information. You learn what best practices is. That is what reform is. And that is what's happening with the redistricting process. It cannot be the same way in 10 years. It is wrong. it is not best practices. So it is our job as council to be concerned about what happens in our future, because my daughter and my children and their friends are going to be adults, and it's our responsibility to make sure that things are fair and just and in place for when the next group of people come in. So we could sit here and we could sit here all day and argue, oh, this is da, 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 da. Yes, this is a small part of what is to come about redistricting and how that looks for the city of Wilmington, for our future, which I care about. It is not, I'm not here for the pictures of the turkeys.
Thank you, Councilwoman Darby. So have you decided, are you going to?
We're going to hold it. Anything happens, then I hold it.
Okay, we are holding the legislation, the ordinance as presented and as requested by sponsor Councilwoman Darby. I don't think there are any other matters on the agenda. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second. I have a second. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. I think it was a very healthy discussion, even though we may not have come to an agreement. And I thank everyone in the public that joined us tonight. Good night.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.